Hey everybody, welcome back! As promised, here is part 2 of my collection videos. Last one was fun to do. And I kind of waited a little bit to get a chunk of stuff done for the Imps. I just finished up a bunch of the Imperial Special Forces, so now that they are done and dusted, I'm ready to go through these units. Empire's in a weird place right now. I feel like maybe they're the least I feel the least inspired with list building for the Imperials right now. I'm not 100% sure why, although I am really liking the Iden Imperial Special Forces combo, which we'll take a look at those in just a second. But overall, I kind of feel like maybe right now they have the least sort of faction identity, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I can get a little inspiration here, but I just tried Op Vader for the first time the other day, had a really good time with that, but anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at some of these units close up. Alright, so taking a look at these core units, there are currently 4 core options for the Empire. I don't yet have any of the Stormtrooper upgrades painted. Just like the Rebels, I do have several boxes of them. I've just kind of prioritized other stuff. But I really do want to get, I think especially the RT-97C looks like it could be pretty tasty. But, well, here we go. Here's the kind of ubiquitous Stormtrooper. Obviously, they've got that rocket launcher back there that doesn't see a whole lot of play. These, kind of like my Rebels, I was kind of speed painting them. So I think I've developed a much better way of painting white, which hopefully you'll see when I get to my my clones. But you know, overall I'm pretty happy with them, especially for how quickly I was able to get them on the table. I do have 5 Stormtrooper units, but I rarely ever use more than 4, so I kind of have some in cold storage and I just didn't feel like pulling out for the purposes of this video. Ditto the Snow Troopers. I have one more, but you know, rarely am I running 2 Snow Troopers anymore. In fact, I rarely ever run 1, although I used to kind of love them back in the day. I still think they're pretty cool models, and they were definitely fun to paint, but really, I think the star of the show are the Shore Troopers. I mean, I just think they look awesome. I think they play well. They're easily my favorite core unit for the Imps, and of course they've got that little mortar there. I rarely take an Imp list that doesn't have at least one. I do have 2 units painted up, and I've heavily considered a third. I know the 333 list is pretty popular right now, but I don't know. I still like to see some Stormtroopers on my list because, you know, what's an Empire force without Stormtroopers? So, all right, that's my core units. And next up, Imperial Special Forces. You know, I gotta say, I think the Imperial Special Forces are pretty awesome. They've got a lot of cool diversity, and I think all of them are really very functional in the game. They're all kind of good choices for what they do. You know, obviously we've got the Scout Troopers, right? They're pretty straightforward. I've got the multiple little sniper or saboteur teams or whatever they're called, and then the one kind of regular commando team. And with their recent price reduction, they've actually been pretty fun. We've put them on the table a couple of times, even just the 4-man group, and they've been pretty interesting. At least something different to play. Royal Guard, I think, are still a lot of fun in certain lists. You know, we still tend to see them a lot with, you know, Palpatine or otherwise, but certainly with Palpatine. And they're just cool. I think they're neat. They bring something pretty different to the table and still see a lot of play. Haven't put Death Troopers on the board in a little bit, but I still love them. I mean, they're some of the coolest models. They can really pack a punch. I think Shore Troopers in some ways reduced their stock a little bit just because the Shore Trooper dice pool is pretty much as nasty as the Death Troopers at a much cheaper price point, but Death Troopers are still pretty cool. And then of course we've got the Imperial Special Forces. I have 1 Inferno squad and then 2 of the regular Imperial Special Forces. These were a nightmare to paint. I kind of hate painting black, but I do think I'm really happy with the end result. You know, compare that to my Death Troopers, which look sort of bland and kind of a black blob. And I think these just really kind of pop. I really did the sharp gray highlights to really make them pop. And they look awesome, especially on the table, right? That just pops so well. It kind of tricks the eye into seeing those highlights. So, all right, well, there's Special Forces. All right, just a very brief segment here. I picked up 2 boxes of the personnel. Really, this is for the 2 medical droids, which I don't really put on the table much anymore. Obviously have the one of each of the little astromech repair droid and the comms officer. Again, don't really ever use those too terribly often. And then I have the one official officer, and then there's a 3D print from, I think it's Skullforge, which I just thought would add a little bit of cool variability on the table. Again, these don't always see play, but sometimes the officers do. But, you know, they're fun to have those options. All right, again, looking a little light on support options. I don't have any dewbacks painted, although I actually have 3 boxes. So one of these days soon, I'm going to paint some lizard cavalry and get them on the table. But for right now, this is my quaint collection of support. The bikes, don't put them on the table a whole lot anymore, but still some of my favorite models. You know, hard to believe these are core set because they still look really cool. I've actually thought about getting a third one to paint white like they were in The Mandalorian. I think that'd look pretty awesome. And then, of course, the E-Web. It's okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think, you know, it can be useful. Really wish they weren't snowtroopers. And I've seen that you can get, you know, 3D prints of crew for them that would replace that. I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of ugly with snowtroopers, weirdly. I don't know. It's a fine unit, but really I don't ever use Empire support these days. We'll see. We'll see if something comes along that makes me really want to consider bikes. And you know, I have not used the Empire bikes since the changes to the compulsory move, so they might be a little bit more tasty. Now I'll have to put them on the table and see. Okay, now time for 2 of the absolutely most awesome models in Legion. The ATST first up. Man, this thing, it's just a beautiful model. It's huge, it's imposing, it looks great on the table. You know, it came out early in the game, and I know people try to make it work, you know, time and again, and it's gotten better every iteration. They sort of keep chipping away at it and making it a little better each time. It's still not my favorite unit to put on the board, but you know, once in a while you just gotta put it on there and watch it kind of dominate a sector of the board. And you know, it's certainly a lot better than it was in the early days. I'm not sure how much I love it still, but what a cool model. I mean, just look how huge it is. It's massive. Love it to pieces. And then, of course, the Occupier tank. Thing is super cool. It was a really fun model to paint. You just love the big imposing tanks. And I think I have not tried really using a light transport since the rules changes, but I love the idea of this thing driving around, maybe even with an E-Web on the back, you know, being like a technical, like an El Camino or something. You know, I've used it a couple times to deliver snowtroopers, and that was always a lot of fun. Now it might be even better. They could sort of just ride along in the back, you know, squirting fire from back in there. But it'd be interesting to get this thing back on the table. Looks cool. You know, both of these are just such good models for the game. You know, it's one of those things that if someone's walking by and they see this on the table, they're going to be like, wow, that looks awesome. You know, what a beautiful game. Might get people interested in Legion. So, yeah, love these heavies. Both of them are just super cool. And looking forward to trying them out some more. And finally, that brings us to all of the characters, commanders and operatives. And obviously, first up, we've got the man himself, Emperor Palpatine, pulling all the strings. Such a fun model to paint with his, like, corpse-colored flesh. And you know, it's one of those models where you can get it done quick, but the end result is always cool. He's always fun. He's still, I think, just awesome in this game. Love playing him, hate facing him, and Now You Will Die always is rough. You know, you got to really plan for it. Over here, I've got my 2 different Darth Vaders, and I actually think this is kind of cool comparing and contrasting my differing paint styles from kind of the very beginning of the game to more recently. You know, in both cases, painting all black just looks a little different. I really like the Operative Vader sculpt. I think he's in a much more dynamic pose, and the cape is more billowy, so just really fun to paint. Fun to play too. I've only played him once, and I really enjoyed him. Maybe could use 1 or 2 more health points, but you know, whatever. Here's the Bounty Boys. Rarely use Boba Fett. He needs a revamp. His command cards being weapons feels bad, man. They should be armament cards to give him some more interesting cards. But Bosk is still awesome. He's great. I play with him quite a bit. He's kind of a crutch unit for me. Still rely on him all the time. Middle management, of course. Don't use them a whole lot these days either, but I love Krennic. Really, I love Veers too. But I really like Krennic's command cards. Maybe a little less so these days, but just love that unit. And he was probably my most used commander for the longest time. But I do think Iden right now is kind of, the best option for the points. She's very capable. She's got amazing command cards. That tactical strike card is just absolutely ridiculous with the right army list. And I don't know, she's fun to play. She's kind of fits in that space of she's not a huge expensive unit that's slowly getting across the board, and she's not like Krennic, who he's kind of just exists for his command cards, and then towards the end of the game he winds up with his pistol. She's very active in the game, has interesting command cards, and is generally just kind of fun to have on the table. So alright, well there you go. That concludes my Empire collection army. Thank you guys for sticking it out. I'll eventually get to clones and droids, although I'm probably going to wait until I get a few more units painted up for them, so it's not just like a 3-minute video. So thanks for joining. I appreciate it. See y'all.